The letter landed on the king's desk like a thunderclap. No warning, no signature, just 6 words written in black ink. The Queen has another house. Alone. Within minutes, the stillness of Buckingham Palace fractured. Corridors once filled with morning calm now buzzed with the quiet panic of staff trying not to be seen. Whispers spread faster than footsteps. What house? Where? Who knew? King Charles III stood by the window of his private study, his reflection framed against the gray London sky. "Is this true?" he asked, voice low but sharp. Sir Clive Alderton, his private secretary, hesitated. "We're verifying, Your Majesty. The property is listed under an alias Rosendale Holdings, Dorset." Dorset. The word hit him like a cold blade. Camilla had been there 3 times that month, under the pretense of resting for her health. The reports had seemed harmless then until now. Charles turned away from the window. "No more reports," he said. "I'll see it myself." From that moment, the king's composure, the calm, methodical patience that had defined his reign, cracked. He had spent a lifetime defending his wife against the storms of public opinion, but this storm was different. It was born inside the palace walls. By evening, unmarked cars were moving quietly through the English countryside. Their destination, a secluded manor surrounded by forests and cliffs, near the village of Milton Abbas. The locals called it the Whispering House. As the gates came into view, one of the aides murmured, "If this is true, sir, it changes everything." Charles said nothing. His eyes never left the dark silhouette beyond the trees. And what he would find inside that hidden villa would not only betray a marriage, it would redefine the very idea of royal trust. Stay with me, because what the king saw that night would silence even Buckingham Palace. In the days leading up to that fateful journey, tension within Buckingham Palace had already reached a quiet boiling point. The fallout from Prince Andrew's disgrace on October 30 still lingered like a stain on the royal calendar, and whispers of instability haunted every corridor. For a monarch who valued order above all, King Charles could feel control slipping through his fingers. Then came the disappearances. 3 weekends in a row, Queen Camilla had left London unexpectedly, citing private recuperation. The official record listed her as staying at Ray Mill House, her known country residence in Wiltshire. But there was a pattern that didn't fit new drivers each time, phone lines disconnected, and her security team reassigned to alternate duties. Prince William, ever cautious, noticed first. "Her absences don't match her briefings," he told his father's aide, Sir Clive Alderton. "If something's off, better we find it than the press." That comment, meant as quiet concern, became the spark that lit a royal investigation. Meanwhile, Princess Anne, the monarchy's unshakable realist, warned Charles not to let curiosity become weakness. "You've always seen the best in people, Charles," she told him during tea at Clarence House. "But the crown can't afford sentiment when trust is uncertain." For once, the king didn't respond. He simply stared into his cup, the weight of her words pressing on him. The royal press office carried on as usual, unaware that behind closed doors, the king's team had begun tracing financial ledgers linked to Rosendale Holdings Limited. The results were chilling quiet transfers from the Duchy of Cornwall's private accounts to a property trust outside the palace's jurisdiction. What began as curiosity was turning into suspicion. And suspicion in the House of Windsor was the beginning of war. The first confirmation of the Queen's secret came not from a whistleblower or a tabloid leak, but from the palace's own security network. A senior protection officer named Major Ian Beckett, a man who had served the royal household for 3 decades, noticed an irregularity in the weekly movement logs. One motorcade, unmarked and unregistered, had departed Clarence House under maintenance cover. The passenger manifest was blank. When cross-checked, the coordinates matched a property listed under Rosendale Holdings Limited. In Dorset, a trust that had never appeared in any royal audit. Beckett hesitated before forwarding the file to Sir Clive Alderton with a single note. "Something isn't right." Within hours, the king was briefed. His reaction was not explosive, it was quiet, methodical, the kind of silence that chills a room. "How long have I been a fool in my own house?" he murmured. No one dared to answer. That evening, the king dined alone in the private quarters of Buckingham Palace. Staff described him as distant, barely touching his food. He read through the preliminary dossier again and again. Bank transfers, maintenance contracts, surveillance photos, all pointing to one undeniable fact. Someone had been careful. Too careful. Meanwhile, Prince William conducted his own discreet inquiries. His contact at Sandhurst confirmed the property's isolation, high perimeter walls, private guards, and no official royal insignia. When he showed the images to Princess Catherine, her face paled. "It doesn't look like a retreat," she said softly. "It looks like a fortress." At the same time, Princess Anne was summoned to a late-night meeting with her brother. She entered his study to find him pacing, letter in hand. "She says it's for rest and recovery," Charles said, gesturing to the note. "But why hide it? Why lie about something harmless unless it isn't harmless at all?" Anne's response was pragmatic, but not unkind. "Then go and see it. You won't sleep until you do." By dawn, Charles had made up his mind. He instructed Sir Clive to arrange a discreet visit to Dorset, without media, without escort. Only his most trusted aide would accompany him. Outside, London stirred awake, oblivious to what was unfolding. To the world, the king was simply taking a short break at Highgrove. But in truth, the monarch of Great Britain was preparing to face a secret so personal and so profound that it would change how history remembered both him and the woman who once stood beside him. The king's convoy left Highgrove under the cover of dawn. 3 cars, no flags, no escorts. Just a man who had ruled with patience, now driven by doubt. King Charles III stared out the window as the countryside blurred past hedgerows, mist, and memories. Dorset had always been Camilla's sanctuary, her quiet space. But today, that peace felt like betrayal. As they neared Milton Abbas, Sir Clive Alderton cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, the property is registered under Rosendale Holdings. The trust was formed in 2019. The financial trail leads back to—" "I know where it leads," Charles interrupted, his voice restrained but brittle. "To the woman I trusted above all others." When they arrived, Rosevale Manor loomed out of the fog like a shadowed relic. The gates bore no royal crest, only the simple initials R.H. The driveway curved toward a grand limestone house, windows shuttered, curtains drawn. Everything was still too still. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lavender and polish. Dust motes swirled through the light, revealing rooms frozen in time. Portraits of rural landscapes hung beside ornate mirrors. It was elegant, but sterile, a house without a soul. Then, in a side gallery, Charles stopped cold. Displayed beneath glass were items unmistakably royal. A sapphire brooch once belonging to Queen Elizabeth II, a gilded clock from Clarence House, and a ceremonial pen used during his coronation. "These were never meant to leave palace grounds," he whispered. Sir Clive opened a drawer in the adjoining study. Inside were folders, one marked Health Correspondence, another Private Accounts. The king flipped through them with trembling hands. His own medical reports, redacted. Letters between Camilla and Dr. Robert Fielding, his personal physician. Notes suggesting certain results had been softened to protect His Majesty's peace of mind. Charles's face hardened. "So she protected me from my truth," he said quietly. Or perhaps she protected herself from losing her crown. At that moment, a noise echoed from the corridor, the sound of heels on marble. Camilla had returned. Her expression, when she saw him, shifted from shock to sorrow. "Charles," she said, her voice barely steady. "You weren't meant to see this." He raised the letter between his fingers. "You mean I wasn't meant to know?" The room held its breath. The tension was royal but painfully human, 2 people bound by power, undone by silence. "I built this place," she whispered, "because I needed a world without the cameras, without the judgment. You call it deceit. I call it survival." "Survival doesn't require secrecy," he replied. "Only guilt does." Neither spoke again. When he left, the echo of his footsteps filled the house that love had built and mistrust had buried. Back at Buckingham Palace, the whispers began. Staff called it the Dorset discovery. Senior advisors warned that if the press uncovered it, the monarchy would face its darkest crisis since the Diana years. Princess Anne, ever the realist, told her brother, "If this gets out, hold your head high. Don't defend it, define it." That night, Charles stood alone in his study, the moonlight catching the royal seal on the confiscated documents. A crown could command nations, but it could never command the heart. And here's where I'd like to hear your thoughts. If you were in King Charles's position, would you forgive a secret like this or see it as betrayal? Let me know in the comments, and tell me where in the world you're watching from. It's always fascinating to see how royal stories resonate across countries and cultures. Because what happened in Dorset wasn't just scandal, it was a reminder that even in palaces, trust remains the rarest luxury of all. By the next morning, Buckingham Palace was no longer a home, it was a pressure chamber. The king's private return from Dorset had already set off alarm bells. Only a handful of senior staff knew what had been discovered inside Rosevale Manor. Yet the air around the palace felt thick with unspoken truth. No one asked questions, but everyone avoided eye contact. In the royal study, King Charles III sat behind his oak desk, hands clasped, eyes unfocused. Across from him stood Queen Camilla, summoned at dawn. The silence between them was heavier than the rain drumming against the windows. "You shouldn't have gone there," she said quietly. "You violated my privacy." Charles's voice was calm, but each word cut like glass. "You forfeited privacy the moment you forged mine." He pushed the folder of medical reports toward her. "Did you really think I'd never find out?" Camilla looked down at the documents, her own handwriting on the margins, the name Dr. Robert Fielding circled in blue ink. "I was trying to protect you, Charles. You were unwell." The press was circling. "You couldn't handle more pressure." "Protect me?" His voice rose, not in anger but in heartbreak. "You lied to me. You lied to the crown. You lied to the nation." She turned away, her composure breaking for the first time. "You don't understand what it's like to live in your shadow," she said, trembling. "Every day, I am weighed, measured, compared to Diana, to duty, to perfection. I built that house because I needed one thing that was mine." Charles stood slowly, emotion shaking the restraint he had spent a lifetime mastering. "You built it with the crown's money. You filled it with the queen's possessions. You made your escape out of deceit." There was no shouting, no tears, only finality. The king walked to the window, staring at the gray London skyline. "Camilla," he said softly, "there's no throne strong enough to hold a lie." When she left the room, she didn't look back. Within an hour, her staff were informed she would be taking an extended private retreat at Ray Mill House. The official line read, "Her Majesty is recovering from exhaustion." The truth was known only to a few, and it was devastating. In the following hours, Prince William met with his father. The conversation was brief but decisive. "You've done what you had to," William said, his tone more son than successor. "Now you have to hold the line." That evening, the royal press office released a single statement, confirming that the Queen would step back from public duties. No denial, no defense, only silence. And in that silence, the monarchy shifted once again. It was not rage that defined the day, but sorrow, the quiet kind that seeps into the walls of history and never truly leaves. The aftermath unfolded like slow-moving thunder, quiet at first, then impossible to ignore. By dawn the next day, the front pages were already relentless. "The secret villa of the Queen" screamed across headlines from London to New York. The public, long accustomed to royal dramas, now sensed something different. This wasn't rumor or tabloid speculation. This was revelation. Inside Buckingham Palace, the king's advisors worked round the clock, crafting statements that said everything and nothing. "Her Majesty remains devoted to her duties," one draft read, "but will take time for reflection." The words were polished, but the tone betrayed unease. Everyone in the palace knew reflection was just another word for exile. Neither spoke again. When he left, the echo of his footsteps filled the house that love had built and mistrust had buried. While father and son spoke, Princess Anne was already managing the fallout behind the scenes. She met with senior courtiers, reminding them that the monarchy had survived worse abdication, scandal, even death. "We'll outlast this too," she told them. "But not if we feed the fire." Her calm, pragmatic tone steadied even the most anxious staff. In the royal study, King Charles III sat behind his oak desk, hands clasped, eyes unfocused. Across from him stood Queen Camilla, summoned at dawn. The silence between them was heavier than the rain drumming against the windows. And in that silence, the monarchy shifted once again. It was not rage that defined the day, but sorrow, the quiet kind that seeps into the walls of history and never truly leaves. That evening, the royal press office released a single statement, confirming that the Queen would step back from public duties. No denial, no defense, only silence. In Parliament, Prime Minister Keir Starmer made a rare comment: "The King remains a symbol of unity. Private matters, however painful, will not shake our constitutional stability." The statement was diplomatic, but its subtext was clear. Even the government wanted this storm to pass. He paused beneath the ancient oak he had planted the year he married Camilla. Its branches twisted upward, scarred by wind and time. "Endurance," he whispered to himself. "That's all that's left." And for a king who had built his life on patience, Endurance was both his crown and his curse. As the weeks passed, the noise faded, but the silence that followed was even louder. King Charles III continued his public duties, handshakes, speeches, ceremonies, yet behind the measured smile was a man changed forever. The story of the secret villa had become something larger than scandal. It had become a mirror reflecting the truth about love, loyalty, and the limits of trust even inside a palace built on tradition. For decades, Charles had been defined by endurance, enduring scrutiny, loss, and the long wait for the crown. Yet in the twilight of his reign, he learned the harshest lesson of all, that power cannot protect the heart. Titles, wealth, and legacy can command respect, but they cannot buy honesty. Even the mightiest monarch must face the same human fragilities that define every family: doubt, forgiveness, and regret. Observers often say the monarchy endures because it adapts, but sometimes, endurance is not about adaptation, it's about acceptance. Accepting that truth hurts, accepting that love is flawed, accepting that to lead with dignity often means to suffer in silence. Perhaps that is what distinguishes rulers from the rest of us: not immunity to pain, but the courage to live with it. And if there's one universal truth in this royal chapter, it's that betrayal, in any form, forces us to rediscover who we really are. Charles, beneath the weight of history, had to choose between anger and understanding. He chose silence not because he was weak, but because some wounds must close without applause. For those watching around the world, perhaps that's the lesson. Trust is fragile, love is demanding, and the pursuit of truth, even painful truth, is the only path that frees us. Whether you're a monarch or an ordinary soul, what defines you is not what breaks you, but how you rebuild afterward. And so the king carries on not as a man unbroken, but as one who has learned that every crown comes with its price. Somewhere in Dorset, the gates of Rosevale Manor remain closed. Somewhere in London, the monarchy continues, quieter but steadier. What would you have done in his place? Would you forgive? Or would you demand the truth at any cost? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments and let me know which country or city you're watching from. If this story made you reflect, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more royal insights, powerful truths, and the unseen human stories behind history's most famous faces. Because even behind crowns and castles, we're all just searching for a truth we can live with.